Hey everybody and welcome. This is the second video in which we are going to continue using the Fern plan that we built in the previous video. So if you haven't watched that one, go ahead and check it out, because this one is going to be a shorter video in which we will basically take what we created and try and put it inside Unreal and see how that thing is going to look like. So the first thing that I'm going to do is, once I have my project open, is I'm going to import my Fern asset that we finished in the previous video. So I'm going to drag and drop in here. It's going to ask me if I wanted to auto-generate collision. I don't actually care about that thing at the moment. I want to check and see if this thing is going to import textures and materials. I'm actually going to take both of those out, as I don't want to have that either. So everything else looks fine. So I'm going to hit on import. And right away I have this Fern asset. Now if I click and drag it out here, we have this Fern. So this is the model that we created. Now the issue is that right now this thing is not animated, nor does it have any wind or textures to it. So let's start, and first of all let's import the textures that are gonna be the building stone to create the material for this thing. Now since we used the Megascans textures, I'm going to take the textures and pull them in here. So I'm going to take my albedo map, opacity map, normal map, roughness map, and I'm actually even going to pick up the translucency map. So I'm going to click and drag all of those in here. So as soon as I'm going to drag and drop, it's going to import all of these maps, which will render me able to use these now when I go and create the actual material for this Fern. All right, let's just wait for a few more seconds. All right, awesome. So I have these 5 elements. So I'm going to right click here and create a material. I'm going to call it M Fern base. All right, awesome. First of all, I'm going to apply it here. So now it's applied to the Fern. And from here, I'm going to start compiling the shader. Creating the most base material is quite simple. We're going to double click on this thing, and it's going to open up our material editor here. So what I want to do is I'm going to first of all select my maps, the one I use. So all of these, click and drag them inside here. So that is going to create all of those texture samples that we want to use. So like I said, very, very simple. This is the easiest way to create it, but we'll see what we can do with all of this. All right, so we have, let's just space them out a bit. Awesome. All right, so the first thing that I want to do is I'm going to take my texture sample from my albedo map and drag it into the base color. Drag the normal map into the normal slot, this one into the opacity. Now since this thing doesn't have opacity, it means I need to change my blending mode. At the moment, if I select the Fern base, you're going to see that the blend mode is opaque. What I want to go is go down to masked. Masked is going to open up the opacity map, which is going to allow me to plug in this. There you go, like this. And now you're going to see that here I have a different outcome for this material. All right, so this thing is my, if I'm not mistaken, this is the roughness. So plug it into the roughness map. And the last here is our translucency map, and in this case I can actually use that, but instead of surface I would have to, well, not surface, but instead of well, let's just see where they've put it. Yep, here we go, subsurface shading mode. We can also use the two-sided foliage map. So if I use two-sided foliage, that's fine. Click on two-sided, make sure this thing is clicked so we can see the backside as well. And from here, I can go and put it into the subsurface color, like that. So right away, I'm actually going to hit apply because I want to see how this thing looks. If everything is right, as soon as this thing finishes compiling, my fern should start looking more like a fern, which is what I'm seeing here. Now, I want to go ahead, I'm going to fix my exposure at 0 so it's not going to be changed depending on how I see the sun. And as it is right here, I can call it quits. I can say that I like this, it's realistic enough, and we can use it in whatever scene that we have, because even if we come very close to it, you're going to notice that all of the details that are coming out from the 4K textures are very, very crisp. So this thing is a high fidelity model. It works very nice. But let's see how we can push this a bit further and give it a bit more life and quality. The first thing that I would like to do is add in a bit more life to it, because if you remember in the previous video when we created this model, we actually gave it some vertex color, which you can check if you double click on the static mesh, and when it opens up our model here, or our mesh, if you go up here where it says vertex colors, you click on it, you're going to notice that this thing has some darks in the middle, then you have some greens, some lighter greens. So we have some vertex color from the green, coming from the green channel. All right, so I'm going to close this. And now, the way to add, the easiest way to add in that look, for example, just I'm going to move all of these to the side. The easiest way to add some wind to this would be to go in the world position offset, and from here you just click and drag out a simple grass wind. Now, as soon as you create this node actually has 3 elements it needs to function properly. The first one is the wind intensity. This is a simple scalar node, so just hold on 1 and click anywhere, and this is going to create a simple node. You can input in the first one. This node is going to control the strength of the wind, so in this case I'm going to put 0.1 as a test. Now the second thing that I need is the wind weight. Now the weight is being calculated depending on what we have painted, and since we painted on with the green channel, what we want to do is go in and take vertex color from here, put it over here, and now since we use the green channel, I can take and plug this thing inside the wind weight. And the last thing here is the additional WPO. For this one, we can use just a color. So in this case, I'm gonna hold on the number 3 and click, and this is just a regular black color, nothing fancy, and plug this thing inside here. As soon as we have these 3 plugged in, you're gonna notice that error just disappeared, and now you can see here we have some wavering of the leaves. So let's go ahead and hit apply and see how this thing is going to affect our shader. So as soon as this thing is applied, I'll put this to the side, and now we can see that our fern that we created is actually wavering, like there is actual wind moving it. So this is an awesome little trick that you can use when you want to create some very, very cheap, resource-wise cheap assets for your exterior scenes. Right? So as you can see, nothing complex, all you got to do is put in the vertex color. This thing controls the wind, and this thing is just a color. All right, so in this case, if this thing is moving too much, I can further control this or refine, so 0.05 or 0.03, and hit apply. And now I can see that with this small amount, the wavering or the wind is very, very negligible. It just gives it that bit of life, so it's not going to break anything. All right, so let's select all of these. I'm going to hit C, which is going to allow me to comment. This is going to be my wind controls. It's actually a pretty good idea to put down comments in your shaders, especially if somebody else is going to be working on it. This way, you can easily take all the comment on all of the nodes inside the comment and move it around. So for this case, these are the wind controls. I'm going to put it here. All right, so now let's see what else we can do here to further refine and improve this shader. I'm going to go over and take all of these nodes, push them back a bit more, so we can focus on our albedo map or our base color map. Now what I want to do here is basically put a controller on it. So in case sometimes when you're using, especially when you're using Quixel maps, the textures coming from there, when you put them inside Unreal, they can come in looking very, very bright. In this case, I don't think this is the case, but sometimes they can be very, very bright. So you need to have a way in which you can control how that brightness transfers into your scene. So the easiest way to do this would be to basically take the albedo map or the base color map and then multiply it by a scalar parameter. So go and scalar parameter like this. We can name this pretty much anything. So let's go base color control like that, and multiply it. So hold down M and click. This is going to take the multiplier. So node this thing into the B, this thing to the A. By default, this thing should be at 1, because if it's at 1, it's not going to change anything. And simply put this thing into the base node. So I'm going to apply this. And here, now if I take a look, nothing is changed. But if I go inside my controller here and now go and put 0.1, since this is a scalar version, you're going to see that this thing propagates right away. I don't have to wait for the compile. So I can control the brightness of our texture by just changing this default value, 0.2, 0.5, and so on and so forth. So I'm going to put it back to 1. And again, select these and go base color. Awesome. Now put that thing to the side. Let's take a look at what else we can change here. Now, here's another trick, especially when you're working with foliage. Namely, if you get close to it, you're going to see that the normal map is giving it all of these nice details. But the thing is, you can actually amp up these details by multiplying the normal map. Now, there is a pretty interesting way that you can do this, and that is by basically multiplying the red and green channel, but leaving the blue channel out of it. Now the way to do this is a bit different here, because you can't simply just go in, click, and select the red and green channel. So you have to multiply those by a scalar value. So again, scalar parameter. I'm gonna call this normal intensity, like so. And now I'm going to put in two multiply nodes. Now the first multiply node is going to come from the red channel and go into the A. The other one is going to go from the green channel. And both of these are going to be controlled by the normal intensity. So that thing is going to go to the B. All right, awesome. And now I want to get both of these into one node. And that node is called an append node. So append vector will allow me to take both of these and output them as 1. And since we're not changing the blue channel, I'm going to go and take another append vector here, like so. Take the blue channel and stick it inside the B or the A, doesn't actually matter. I'm going to double click here so I have a way to create this, and I'm going to take the append from these two and put it here. So what we did here is very, very simple now. As you can see, this multiplier is the red channel multiplied by the normal intensity. This multiply is the green channel multiplied by this intensity. And the blue in here is actually going to be just taken and put into the append. And from here we have another append coming into here. So if we take this thing now and put it inside the normal, like so. In this case, now with this normal intensity, I can control how this normal map is going to look like. So if I zoom in closer to here, you notice that now this thing is very, very flat. It's like the normal map is not even present. The reason for this is that the normal intensity at the moment is at a value of 0. But I'm going to put this thing to the side. You're not going to see me change the numbers, but it doesn't matter. I'm going to change it to 1. And you can see now that it's just like before we changed anything else. But if I go to number 2 and hit enter, now you're noticing that the normals are getting very, very hard. You can see a lot more of these details, and it's much more pronounced. I can even amp it up to even higher, like 3. But then you're going to start seeing some breakups in the texture. You might get some weird looks, but you can do it. So I'm going to go with number 2. And this little node cluster is a great way to control or emphasize your normal maps. So again, I'm going to select all of these, hit C, normal maps. Awesome. Put it there. Put the base color there. I'm going to take these. Oops. All right. So when this happens, you go like this. Put this thing as the wind controls. Like so. And pretty much this is a pretty solid start for any type of, there you go, any type of foliage that you want to create. So you have this fern created. You have a way of controlling the color of the base map. You have a way of controlling the strength of the normal maps. And the last thing that I could probably do here is change the node going into the specular. Since I don't have a specular map, if I want to add in just a tiny bit more detail and not have this sort of a reflection, what I can do is I can take the red channel from my normal map, or not the normal map, but the albedo map, and from here I can plug it into this specular. By doing this, and as soon as I apply it, you're going to notice that all of the reflections are going to have a different look. This is purely a choice. If you would like to have it, you don't have to do it. You're going to notice that now the reflections are much weaker. So if you want to have a fern that's much shinier, you can simply hold on Control and remove the line going to the specular. Go ahead and reapply, and that is going to remove the specular. But in case it's too shiny, you can always draw on the red channel and slap it into the specular. And with that, we basically did create the material for this fern. And lastly, if you want to see how this thing is going to look like if you take it in and actually scatter it around, you can go over in the foliage sector, take the fern asset, you're going to double click on it. It's going to open up here, so just click and drag in the texture into it, actually the material, and hit save. All right, close this thing, and now take the fern asset, put it into foliage type. In here, when you click on it, you can choose what you want to do with it. Since I want to have, let's say, a bit smaller brush size, let's try something like 50. That's too small, so let's try 100. Yeah, 100 would work. I want to have a difference in scale, so I'm going to go with from 0.5 to, let's say, 1. So now when I click and drag, it's going to create all of these ferns around it. There we go. As soon as it's finished adding in all the ferns and the compiling is done, now I can see that when I get closer, I get this nice field of green ferns. It looks nice, especially if you're making a jungle like floor or jungle like scene. Let's go and change this to like something like 0.2 up to 0.5. This is going to help fill in the gaps, as you can see, like that. Or you can use it in pretty much any sort of a forest or anywhere, even a garden for that matter, if it has a fern into the garden. There you go. So we can just go around, scatter in some smaller ferns. And if we go and actually add a texture on the floor, and not this generic black and not black but gray material, you're gonna get a very interesting look, especially if when you get down here and you have that subtle effect from the wind on all, giving you that illusion that there is actually something working on these ferns. So that would be it. I hope you guys had fun and you managed to learn something new. If you have any questions, leave them below. I will meet you in the comment section of the video. And if you enjoyed this video, please click the like button. And if you're not subscribed, now is a great time to do so. As always, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye-bye.